welcome to all our speakers. Welcome to UK House. Gideon, I'm going to hand over to you to take on the session.
Well, thank you very much. And it's great to see everybody here and just to watch that film, because it feels quite inspiring. So welcome to Jon, Stephanie and Julian, or Dougie. So let's jump straight in. I mean, I guess the important question I've got is, how important is your international non-UK sort of revenues to your business? And I could start with any of you. So I think I'm going to start with Stephanie.
Thank you, Gideon. We normally, our normal sort of percentage of turnover outside the UK is around 50%. And it's been that case now for 15 of our sort of 30 odd years in business. Interestingly, however, we've just had our year-end, our pandemic year-end, and that leapt to 60%. So our non-UK clients have really helped us over the pandemic period.
Very interesting. And I want to pursue that point about the pandemic impact. One more question for now, though. In terms of where that 60% is coming from, any key markets?
Yeah, the European markets primarily, although we have worked in North America. I can talk a little bit about that later, perhaps. And actually in Indonesia, which I think we might touch on a little later on in the proceedings.
Yeah, okay. Jon, what's the view from Atomic?
So Atomic are an independent creative agency, and I guess we only have a UK office. So I think when we started, we didn't necessarily expect to have any significant global business, but actually across our client base now, probably around 30% of our revenue now comes from multi-market clients, one of which is truly global. Over 130 countries, I think we are communicating in, but predominantly, I think, like Stephanie, probably EMEA is where we in effect focus our efforts, albeit we're running work from the UK and mainly transcreating it for those other markets.
Right. So, Julian, you wear two hats with both VCCP and the IPA. With your VCCP hat on, tell us how important has international come for VCCP? But obviously, you do have offices outside London.
International markets absolutely crucial for us. I'd say 60% of our income is international. North America, APAC, China. The scale of the markets is absolutely crucial. So it's important in terms of size, but also talent, because it's brilliant talent. So we're a better agency for having international offices, not just for the commercial side, but for the talent that we bring in.
And with your IPA hat, if you can, I mean, I know AMV BBDO did very well with the Wim Stories work, but there were, I think, 46 British companies did well at Cannes and picked up something. I don't know if that's an indicator of anything in particular.
Well, the UK is a creative powerhouse. We punch well above our weight. Pound for pound, we're the most awarded country in the world. So we have a real talent base that we ought to be exporting. We ought to be taking that out to the rest of the world. And, if you want to buy the best creativity in the world, you can buy it from the UK.
Okay. Well, I think there's something in that. And I'm not overly excited about the football, but when you get the feel-good moments like the semi-final, it reminds me of the 2012 Olympics, which I think was probably the sort of exciting moment for UK creative industries. Then we have Brexit. Some people were very down on Brexit, but of course the pandemic has put even Brexit in perspective. So Stephanie, if I can come back to you, you talked about, the pandemic, and we all know about remote working, and that included being able to work remotely for clients in different parts of the world and even have teams in different parts of the world. So what's been your experience? And it's obviously been quite good for you.
Obviously, it's been tough. I mean, understanding how we could use the tools at our disposal to not only complete the work, which I think was the relatively easy part, but maintain the relationships. Client servicing, my discipline is all about great relationships with great clients, and we've had some of our clients for 20 odd years. So we were able to do that through the types of meets, ups and cocktail parties and all the sorts of things that everyone's talked about over the last year or so. And we're probably still going to continue to do that post-pandemic. I think naturally, probably our travel is going to be somewhat limited. I think it makes sense for sustainability reasons as much as anything else. But we will manage to bolster that up with the use of virtual tools to keep those relationships going. But I would say that's the thing which I'm most proud of my team about, is that they've kept those relationships going and actually probably grown them, which has been extraordinary.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories of people sort of saying how the pandemic suddenly meant there was a level playing field, both in terms of size of agency, and I guess also to being able to access clients and do work in different parts of the world. So, Jon, I know you've worked in big agency groups, and now you're in Atomic. So, how's the pandemic been in terms of? Has it changed to interact with you, and particularly internationally?
I mean, as you say, I think Brexit was obviously a big concern going into this, and we have some European clients who we work with, Frankfurt, for example, and I think when it all happened, I think we were very concerned that there was some early animosity towards the UK in those first few months. But like you say, the pandemic kind of took over on a kind of human level, and a lot of that kind of went away. But actually, I think what's interesting, I don't think anybody is particularly in love with back-to-back Zoom calls and Teams calls, and it's obviously difficult at times. But actually, for our international clients, I think it's transformed how well we communicate. Like a lot of people that run international business, you did either spend a lot of time on planes, but particularly for Europe, when travel was expensive, you'd spend a lot of time on the dreaded conference call. Conference calls are really, really difficult to build empathetic relationships with clients who, where English isn't necessarily their first language. There are a lot of kind of cultural differences that you're trying to bridge. And video conferencing has been a way for us to speak to clients many more times in the week than you would do normally. The strength of our relationships has got a lot better because of it. I think the growth that has therefore come from those relationships has also come off the back of it. So in some ways, I think, the pandemic has been a real kind of boost, I think, for our international business, which I don't think necessarily we were expecting.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Generally, they also, whilst Stephanie's right, that obviously it's been a very tough period, the ad market overall has been quite resilient after how tough it was in the first few months. And maybe that speaks to the power of communications and being, as Dougie said, to the UK, if it's a powerhouse. Julian, when you think about what's been going on with the pandemic, how has it changed your international relationships? And I want to touch on what you talked about before about accessing talent. And if you could link that maybe in with Brexit, how has it changed? Maybe it's easier to access talent without bringing them to the UK.
Well, I definitely second what Jon said in that Brexit was the biggest thing going until the pandemic came and basically blew it out of the water. Overall, actually, it's been a rare positive side of the pandemic. It's been a massive accelerator. It's forced agencies, clients to adopt new models of behavior, new ways of working, where this sort of interaction is how we now do business. Actually, it's more efficient. It means you can actually meet more people. You don't have to spend your whole time traveling. So I think there's been a speed up. I think it's quite often quoted that there's 10 years tech adoption was taken up in about 10 days. So I don't think we're going to go back to 2019. We wouldn't want to. I think now we're borderless now. So if you've got talent, they can be based anywhere, working with people. At VCCP, we've got 8 offices around the world. And we have teams now working where Singapore, New York, and London work together on a project in a way that wouldn't have happened before. So I think there's been a huge acceleration to it. And I think from the advertiser point of view, from the client point of view, what they want is best talent, because who can build growth? I think as an industry, we are an accelerator for growth. We will be building growth coming out. So, the technology has enabled us to really, increase our contribution.
And on that talent question, were you, as I hear anecdotally, were you having some problems in terms of the talent pipeline, particularly with international people, because of Brexit? In other words, pre-pandemic?
I think Brexit and pandemic is both in terms of people coming into the UK have been difficult. Also, like at the moment in Australia, in Singapore, where in the US, lots of people are locked where they are. It's quite difficult to move. But I guess the plus side is through technology, where we're now used to working like this, means you can massively open your doors to talent working from anywhere, which is absolutely critical. It's absolutely crucial because we are for all the technology, for all the data in the world, we're a people business. We're a commercial creative industry. We need best talent. I guess the beauty now is it's far more common practice for us to have teams that work all around the world.
Yeah. Stephanie, would you like to add anything? I'm interested in the talent because you want to serve the clients, but you've got to have the talent. Have you had problems getting the right talent, and has the pandemic paradoxically helped, or maybe not?
Absolutely, to echo Julian's words, we've actually been able to re-sign a number of our employees who'd moved to other countries for various reasons, to do with their partners or reasons not to do with the agency. And so we've actually brought them back, which is great. So we've now got client servicing coming out of Spain as well as the UK. We've got a creative department coming out of Geneva. So it's really been a real benefit to us. And I guess, to my eternal discredit, I would not have considered that pre-pandemic. I would have seen the barriers rather than the opportunities. So it's been really beneficial to us in that regard.
Okay, good. There's a lot of people who'll be watching and thinking about tips about how to grow their business, of course, but how they can grow internationally. That there may be some pitfalls along the way. Jon, what's been your experience? And I think. You said about 30% of your business is coming from international. Where do you see the best opportunities?
I think there's a number, actually. I think generally there's been a move around from global clients or regional clients to start to re-centralize. I think generally global business goes through phases of decentralizing and then re-centralizing. And I think we are going through a period of where brands are trying to create great work, but some real consistency in how the brand comes across in different markets. So that's really helped. I think as an agency that relies on running global business from one office, that shift towards a re-centralization is a good trend for us. And that's definitely where we've picked up some really interesting clients. I think that the challenge, there's two challenges really. I think one, for you to then properly serve those clients at a kind of broadcast comms level, you need to make sure you are partnered with, technology and trans-creation partners who can genuinely take what could be a great creative idea and make sure it works for different markets. So probably more from a broadcast point of view, you need to make sure you've got incredibly good partners alongside you. But actually, from an activation point of view, typically that's where work is activated at a local market. So we've been most successful when we've had partnerships with often independent, often some best-in-class local activation partners. That might be in social or in PR, who can help manage earned media and influencers. So you really need to to reach out and find really strong local market partners to help you if you're going to genuinely execute across the customer journey for those brands. So I think that's probably, from an agency point of view, something you've got to get in place if you want to be a credible partner to your multi-regional client. I think the other kind of watch out, I think, and our experience with clients, I think as often clients will have a separate regional or global team, and it varies tremendously in terms of how much authority or budget responsibility those teams have. So in some cases, the global or regional team have absolute power of decision making, and they're there to bring their local markets on the journey. In other cases, they are very much more ambassadorial and kind of representing best practice at a global level, but ultimately the power sits still with the local markets. And I think it's a watch out really, is to spend the time, if you have a multi-country client opportunity, to really understand how much your ideas you might be creating can genuinely exist at any point in those markets, or I guess in some cases you can be ending up creating ideas and toolkits that often can never really see the light of day in terms of the ideas. So it's not that there's you can still do very good work for a client where they may not directly execute your idea, but I think you need to go in there with your eyes open and make sure also that as an agency you can be remunerated properly for the work you're doing. So I think that's just a real consideration to understand what we as an agency will be able to genuinely add and deliver on behalf of the client, and make sure that relationship is set up with complete transparency from the start.
Yeah, makes sense. Julian, any thoughts about markets that are good for you or you see as opportunities? I mean, you mentioned China. I think of China as a great opportunity, but it's a very distinct market with a fairly hands-on government. India is a great opportunity, but again, it's work of different regions. So yeah, what's your take on where good opportunities are?
I'll talk to China first, and actually, great having this conversation as UKAEG. It was through a trip with the DIT to China that VCCP, off the back of that trip, we opened our business over there, and we've now got a Shanghai office. The single biggest challenge to doing business in China is actually understanding your motivation and aligning everyone in the organization behind it. It's not enough to say it's big, there's lots of people there, we'll make loads of money. You won't. You need to go with a learning mindset. But we're a stronger agency because we have a China office. In the rest of the world, we're better. It's the R&D lab of the world. So going out to markets, especially China, just on their technology, they're way ahead. So there's a commercial angle, but there's a learning angle. There's an R&D angle. There's a talent angle. I think it's and India. My IPA hat on. That's why India is where we plan to do a trade mission next year. It's got the biggest number of people on the internet growing in the world. So we can take the talent we have and export that, but we also go over there to learn.
That's very interesting, and it's a really good point actually, and I think a good thing for everyone to remember. There are times where, as you've said, talking about the UK as a sort of creative powerhouse, but we definitely don't have a monopoly on particularly innovation, and it really feels China is the absolute leader. And I also hear a new thing is that those Chinese endemic brands coming into the West, and I don't know if you see that as also an opportunity for you, but it sounds like it.
Absolutely. I mean, with China's like it's 1.2 billion people, right? So the local market is vast, but also the brands that are coming out of China taking on the world than challenger brands. The challenger brands coming out. So you've basically got two markets there. You've got inbound and outbound. You also have, as hopefully we get out of this under the pandemic, is the affluent middle class traveling out of China. It's like a third market. That's a huge amount of people traveling around. But what we're brilliant as the UK is we're extremely strategic. We're extremely strong at building brand ecosystems, and that's of immense value. We help grow business and help build brands. So for me, it's the perfect symbiotic relationship where we bring a lot in the talent that we have, but we also learn a lot.
Now, Stephanie, you, I think, mentioned Indonesia, which I know, again, is a very significant market, a really massive mobile e-commerce market as well. Tell us but there could be other markets you're also very keen on. And it's building on what Julian was saying about that learning. I think it's a really good point. What have you been learning and what have you been discovering?
Yeah, I think the sort of the nostrums for Indonesia are actually the same as approaching any other new territory, be it North America, South America, is actually paying attention to culture, both the culture with regard to the brands, but also the culture with regard to the clients and client servicing. It took us a little while and a couple of visits to Jakarta to understand quite that our clients would not necessarily tell us when things weren't as they wanted them to be, that we had to pick up on that, whereas possibly an EMEA client might be more vociferous. And I think therefore, and also the culture of the country. For example, I used to work with Nestle Randri Macintosh on KitKat. Everyone in Indonesia thinks that KitKat is a local brand. They have no knowledge of it having been invented in York or Haxby, wherever it was in York. So I think just understanding where we sit with regard to those other cultures and countries is really important, as it is in China as well. I have some knowledge of China, and I was astounded to learn today that 4 out of the 20 Euro sponsors are Chinese, which is extraordinary. And it shows, to Julian's point, the ambitions of China in that regard in terms of inward bound.
Yeah, very interesting. I was thinking of TikTok as well, just because, that's almost come from nowhere and is also, where a lot of brands are spending money on advertising as well, which is, I think, a big step forward for brands in the world, media brands. So we've heard a little bit about, we've heard quite a lot about different countries and so on. I'm interested if any of you have got a sort of particular success story, if there's a particular client that you might have worked with. When I think of some of the fastest growing brands, they're sort of definitely digital innovator type brands in the e-commerce space. I may be wrong to generalize, but that's my instinct. So Jon, maybe I could start with you. I don't know if there's a client you've been working with would be an example. And again, maybe what you've learned if you've been taking them international.
Yeah, so I think, it's well reported that obviously the pandemic has led to a complete revolution in brands going direct to consumer, and that part of the market in the UK and internationally has gone through the roof. And I think a lot of the growth figures which are now being quoted around recovery of the UK advertising spend and internationally is coming from those D2C sectors. So it's a huge amount of growth in that space, which is allowing actually a lot of very successful businesses become brands for the first time. A lot of D2C, purely digital-based businesses are now suddenly making their first foray into more kind of brand-building comms. So there's an enormous amount of growth and opportunity around D2C. And that absolutely is also around international growth. So we partner, one of our clients, Homebase, will be a UK domestic retailer that is absolutely transformed its model over the last 2 years. We partner with the Hut Group, which, for those of you who don't know, was, I think, the UK's largest float last year, 1.8 billion, I think it floated for. And essentially, the Hut Group helped take D2C brands and help them expand globally. And I think the staggering thing about it is that it is genuinely possible to take D2C brands, retailers, to take them into 20, 30 markets in a matter of months now, and that's a huge area of growth for companies like the Hut Group or other D2C specialist brands, but where they're able to transcreate their work into other markets. So I think that whole space is going to be fascinating to kind of watch grow and develop over the coming years. And some of those are coming out of the UK. There's an enormous amount of affection for UK brands, I think, selling internationally. And now these D2C platforms are, as I say, giving you the opportunity to do it in a dozen markets in a dozen days if you get the model right. So I think we're seeing a lot of growth there, and I'm sure that is set to continue for years to come. I don't think it's going to go backwards, although there's a lot of concern, I know, from retailers about how much there's going to be a shift back to bricks and mortar. But I think overall the trend in the next 5 years is predicted to grow in the online space, irrespective of how much footfall we get back into high streets.
Yeah, and you make an interesting point, which comes out of what you're saying is we do know that the UK is a pretty advanced online market, particularly for e-commerce, relative to most of the rest of Europe and globally. Or Julian, any client story you might want to give as an example? Don't have to, but there might be one you've got in mind.
I would say beyond the D2C, the topic that is most on the lips of my clients is sustainability.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah.
It cuts across lots of every single business that we work with now. The only chance we have of tackling the climate crisis, the climate emergency, is everybody doing their part. Businesses, individuals, all being a collaborative effort. So that's a huge part. So if I think on accounts, if I'm thinking internationally, we work with Shell in their new energies divisions, in their future mobility space. Or if we're working with tech brands, we're working with automotive manufacturers. We work with Audi in North America. So I'd say sustainability, electrification, it's sort of like a societal, human, crucial issue. That's the space where a lot of the conversation we're having with clients at the moment.
Good. So I just wanted to say to everyone watching, if you've got a question for all or some of the panel, please send that in. Just to build on that point about sustainability, I mean, in most of maybe it's because I just spent 2 days judging some sustainability and advertising awards. I hear suddenly so much about what the pandemic has made us realize is you don't need to travel to do things. Yeah. And there some travel was unnecessary. And I felt like shoots that used to happen in the UK, used to happen internationally in a cheaper location might be more likely to happen in the UK also with things like animation. You don't have to have physical shoots. Stephanie, just if I could bring you in anyway, is there anything you'd want to say on sustainability and how that's changing things? It's really interesting to me.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. As I mentioned earlier on, I think we won't be travelling as much as we have done for reasons of sustainability, where we might have travelled to North America 3 or 4 times a year, possibly just once a year. And I think that it's sustainability is something that's all pervasive, whether in the UK, whether in the rest of the world. It's as Julian so well put it, it's an emergency. It's an international emergency. And I think perhaps the pandemic has actually brought issues of sustainability even more to the fore. It's been one of the side benefits of that terrible time. But yes, ERG generally is on all our clients' lips all of the time, and sustainability is a part of that.
Yeah. Jon, is it? You mentioned you don't have offices in other countries, I think. So in a way, that plays quite well for you. But it also the pandemic's opened our eyes to different things in terms of sustainability.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, naturally you have to travel more if you don't have offices in other markets. But as I said, it's become much more possible now through technology. But I think what has also happened at the same time as this kind of behavioural shift we've all had to make is that the technology and innovation around, for us, film shooting, TV shooting, the technology that's been developing in tandem to the pandemic, such as LED shoot technology, it's a genuine, it's a cutting edge at the moment, but it allows you to shoot without going on location. It allows you to shoot without having to use very expensive CGI in some cases. It's in its infancy here, but what's definitely worth exploring is that the government are actually putting a lot of incentives and sponsorship behind brands and agencies that are prepared to try new technology like LED film shoots. And you can get quite a really good contribution towards your production budgets if you're prepared to try new things. They're trying to get a lot of Hollywood films and Netflix shows shot in this country now because you can shoot with a background that you couldn't have ever thought of being possible without getting on a plane somewhere hot and sunny. So I think that's it. Again, there's a coincidence here that technology is racing ahead at the same time as we need to find ways to not travel the world. Unfortunately, we won't be going necessarily opening on a beach somewhere in South Africa anymore, but you can bring South Africa to Slough as long as you've got the technology partner to do it.
It's good you say Slough there, John. There are opportunities now with the technology to us, but actually sustainability wasn't the driver for it, but the one I'm thinking of is O2. So we worked with Epic Games to build the O2 in Fortnite, and because obviously you can't go to the O2 Arena currently because of the lockdown. So building that venue in Fortnite, we then did a gig with Easy Life, band, R&B band. The number of people who went to that gig who had that experience online was way more than ever could have possibly made it to the physical venue. You end up making it an event, a production that is better on a sustainability level. It is carbon neutral, but it's also good business. A lot more people are involved in that.
Absolutely.
So I think it's quite exciting time.
Right, I'm going to, Julian, we've got some audience questions. This applies to everybody, but I'm going to put it to you first. How does the experience of COVID impact on the structure of international agencies? Does it impact on your plans to open more offices, or indeed, I might ask, even close some?
It is, I think, the view I have as VCCP is it's been an accelerator. I don't think it's fundamentally changed the path we were on, but we probably got there quicker. So that's the way I think. And I think on an international perspective, more businesses are willing to work with agencies remotely. So it actually opens up opportunities. So instead of having to go and press the flesh and fly, our lives are now like this, So for me, it's just been an accelerator.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. Would anyone else, Suzanne or John, do you want to add anything to this, or should we? Sorry.
Yeah, if I could say, we were actively looking to open an office in North America prior to the onset of the pandemic. I now don't think we need to do that. I think we've demonstrated over the last 15 months that we can run those sorts of businesses from here. So actually, with maybe some offshoots, as I mentioned earlier on, in other countries, but actually I think the remote way forward is the one for us, definitely.
Interesting question. How do you feel about the Middle East and perhaps operating in a country like Saudi Arabia? Does anyone want to pick up on that question?
I'm smiling because my first job after university was with Rowntree Mackintosh, now Nestle, as export marketing assistant to Saudi Arabia, launching brands like Kit Kat and Lion Bar, great brands out there. However, I could never go. And I know that under MBS, under MBS, this was a long time ago. Under MBS, things have changed enormously, and I absolutely would love to be working with Saudi Arabia. I think it would be extraordinary to be able to do so.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Anything else that I might open this up into a slightly wider question without necessarily being specific about a region, but do you have any sort of warnings, if that's the right word, cautionary sort of advice? Not every country is a democracy, and not every country always has the same rule of law, and there's money at stake and so on. Does any of you have a sort of advice about certain markets where, how, going in with your eyes open, etc.?
I'll speak to that. I think it's extreme. You can lose your shirt very quickly. Setting up an agency in a different country. The most important thing is to, one, stand by your own principles and the way that you do business, and two, understand your motivation for going. It's and also you've got to turn up. You have to invest. You have to invest your time, your energy into it. If you do that with a learning mindset, it's then the most valuable, rewarding thing you might ever do. The work I do in the States and in China is the work I'm most proud of in my career. But but the bear traps are talent. It always comes back to talent. You've got to hire well. You've got to hire decent people.
Very interesting.
If
Jon,
you want, oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, if you want to give your bank manager a heart attack, tell him, as we have told ours, that we've been asked to do business in Sudan and in Iran, and you will very quickly get a call from compliance to explain why you can't do that.
But it worked out. Or you say you can't do that?
Yeah.
Fine. Okay. Now, I was going to just finish by it's a question from Matt Ball, Advertising Association, and it's a good, I think, open question. What else do you think our industry could do to market UK advertising strengths to the world? We know about the Exports Group. We know about the Great campaign. What else do you think our industry could do to market UK advertising strengths to the world? And Jon, may I start with you?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's probably lots of things. I think one of the things that I don't think necessarily gets as much profile as it could do is actually where global campaigns that are created from the UK, where they actually manifest themselves. We're very good at reporting often global campaigns and where they sit in the UK, and you get exposed to it clearly because you're a consumer as much as you are a professional working in the industry. But I think what's amazing if you travel through international airports regularly is quite how much you see work that's been definitely created in the UK on an enormous scale, and it's a very hard thing to capture. But when you see a global campaign that's been running, it's running in 130 markets, and you find a way to capture that in terms of however you do that, in terms of film or a way to just dramatize how big and high profile those campaigns are, I think it would really give the stature to our creativity, not just in terms of how good the idea is, but how much it's influencing, hundreds of millions of people around the world, on a kind of monthly basis. So I'm not quite sure how you do that, but I think giving it stature, not just just the creativity alone, I think could be a fantastic way to do it. But I'm not quite sure how.
I'm not sure how either. Maybe campaign should set up some kind of rankings, but I'm not sure. I'm going to think too. But Stephanie, what do you think our industry could do to market UK advertising strengths to the world?
I think the DIT have done a great job in terms of the great campaign and the support that actually the local officers of DIT give to anyone looking to go out. So I think actually more knowledge of that. I think a lot of agencies would not be aware that you can get a lot of help. They can help you with the launch of the company. They can help you with officers. And I think just generally more awareness of what the government is going to have to offer going forward because of the deficit that we're now about to face.
Okay. Julian, so last word to you. You wear two hats. What else do you think our industry could do to market UK advertising strengths to the world?
You know what? Maybe we should stop being so bloody British and being so humble, because we're actually fantastic. We are a world beater, and perhaps we should, be a little more confident and proud about that. This is the best creativity in the world comes out of this country. Well, I mentioned the football at the start, and I don't want to draw any links, but I would say that generally it is amazing how when you get a chance on an international global stage, whatever the reasons, it can be great for that country, and I definitely feel that whether it's Cannes Lion or the football, these are good platforms to build the Great Britain brand. So I want to say thank you very much to Stephanie and Jon and Julian for taking part in this. Thank you for watching. Thanks for your questions. And now I'm going to hand back.
Thank you very much, everybody. And a big thank you to Gideon for leading on that session. It was incredibly insightful. You can connect with each of our speakers via the Hop-in Network function in the People tab. We've also provided LinkedIn details in the chat. If you want to find out more about UKAEG or some of the government initiatives that were talked about in that panel, please go to UKAEG.com. Don't forget to join in the conversation on social to be in with a chance to win a Cannes Lions membership. Simply use the hashtag UK@CannesLions to enter, and we'll announce the winner later today. We're going to take a quick commercial break, but don't go too far, as coming up next, we'll be following on from some of the topics that were discussed in the panel, looking at markets where British creativity can provide a winning formula. We'll be back in a few.